How you doing, guys? Professor Easy with another discussion video. And today we're going to talk a little bit about fit and finish. And for that we have all these knives that we can check out from various type of price ranges. From going to very cheap gas-like knives. This came in a Husky knife tool and as a gift, I think. And I changed it up a little bit because I loved this Turkish style clip point. And the knife in itself is not bad. It's useful. I've had it for many years, more than a decade or so. And I decided to improve it a bit. So I hand ground the blade and ended up looking a whole lot better. It's very well sharpened and cleaned it up inside. I'm still thinking of changing this. I don't believe this is wood, might be fake wood, but anyways, let's take a look at the seams. You can feel the seams on both sides, and the gaps, a big problem. You can see it there. You can see it right there. The gaps between this fake wood and the stainless steel. I don't know what type of steel it is. I know it's a cheap one because it just loses its sharp edge very quickly. But it is a pattern, a shape that I really enjoy, and that's why I kept it and took care of it. Nonetheless, it's perfectly, no, it's not perfectly centered. It's just a hair to the left side. But anyways, it has a lot of defects. Of course, you can even feel it when you open and close it. It's a serviceable, it's a useful blade. Yes, it is. It has lasted more than a decade and it's still here. But and you can see there as well this crossbar. I know they did this thinking of aesthetics, but it's very bothersome because it's not ground properly as well. That's another defect it has on both sides. It's even more bothersome down here. So those are two hot spots that it has, a big one down here. But anyways, all in all, I like this knife for what it is. That's a key factor, in what you see here on the table, for what it is. From there, I'm going to jump into Rough Riders and take a look at that gap. That's a huge gap. And you'll see even more so right there. You can see through the construction. If there was, let me see if this works. You can see the light right there through the construction. So the gap, as you can see right there, the gap is huge. But it's fairly well centered. It's not rubbing against the blade nor the liners. The finish on this has improved, not the fit, as you can see, because about those gaps. And looking at these knives, it was easier for me to understand more clearly fit and finish. I had this same pattern, this same knife 7 years ago, and it was a mess. Everything was a mess. The seams transitioning from one material to the other, the pins, the shield, the blades rubbed, the liners. So I had to return it, and it's a curious little canoe pattern that I like very much. So I thought to myself, well, I have seen some improvements on behalf of Rough Rider. So I bought it again, and I'm very satisfied with it. Although there are still things to be improved. Now we're talking about cheap knives. These two are just cheap knives, right? The finishes, again, the finish on certain corners of the liners, brass liners and steel on this parts of the spring, they're just very sharp. They're just sharp, and it's a bit bothersome, I gotta say. But apart from that, it's pretty well centered. There are gaps between the materials, between the brass and the bone. Minor. The seams from steel to bone are pretty good. You can barely feel them. The pins are another thing. They are very well ground and polished, same as the shield. Very good job on that. And for what it is, it's a good looking traditional canoe pattern knife for what it is. Now, 7 years ago, I returned the same pattern for what it was, for a cheap traditional Rough Rider knife. I couldn't deal with it, so I returned it. This one's is a keeper. From there, let's jump into Old Timer. Again, we will see again for what it is. This was selected for me because the bone had in other knives, it had little cracks. That's something to watch out for. This one is complete, no cracks in the bone. That's fantastic. There are gaps, and I don't know if you'll be able to see. But there are gaps right there. Is as you can see right here, the backspacer is not there's a huge gap between the backspacer and the spring, and it's not straight as well. So all in all, this is pretty good for its price, for what it is, and the size. Not centered, of course. From there, how about we jump into Carl Schliebe. And this Sudbuster is, I just love this thing. Very simple construction. Just the grinding on it, the polishing on the pins is perfectly well done. I love this wood. I don't know what it is. It's just a very simple construction, high carbon steel, and full size Sudbuster. The brass is not sharp, so that's fine. Very small gaps, nothing to worry about, and for the price, couldn't complain about this brand. Case. Famous Case. I love Case knives, but at the same time, man, they allow certain quality aspects to just get out of hand. Look at this back lock. From day one, since it arrived, it has been like that, and it catches on the skin fairly easy, and it's a hot spot. Of course, when you open the knife, it's not there. it sinks as it's supposed to, and it's just one flat line. Very nice. The gaps are minor in this case, and this is just a fantastic pattern and folder. Really, really love it. But I have had other case patterns, traditional patterns that you can see more of this fit and finish aspects that are not quite well dialed in. For the price, that's where I think this is where we start having a little bit of problem. We're paying a bit more of money, $75, $80, a bit more. And just for example here, the pins are not well milled. They're not well, you can catch skin on both of these pins right here. These ones are okay. They're more like bubbled pins, but these flathead pins are really just not well done on both sides. And I'm not trying to speak illy of any brand. Just want to show fit and finish and compare that to quality, because we may talk about higher end, higher prices knives that have problems with fit and finish, and that it's illogical for me to buy a knife like that. And so what is happening? From there, I'm gonna go to Buck. Buck is just a strong knife, a heck of a knife. They've dialed in masterfully, I think. And just the 110, the very traditional 110. Love this thing. Yeah, it's heavy. Yeah, it doesn't have a clip. Yeah, I had to put the thumb studs in there. But even without the thumb studs and with all that, it's just a great knife. Great folder. From there, I'm going to go to, I'm going to have to go to Boker. And this is a fairly expensive knife. I think it was 180 something, 170 something. And man, I love the material, the history of it, the steel, but I don't know if you'll be able to perceive the tip, but it's crooked. It's not well ground. Now, coming from Boker House, that's just and at that price, this is not well ground on both sides. It's not symmetrical. And from such an old house of great knives, this is just unacceptable. Really, it is. I have kept this knife because I love the pattern, the wood coming from a I think 200-year-old castle or even more, something like that, a German castle, and it's just a simple, beautiful knife, but with those hiccups in the execution. The pins are a bit different. It's like those curved pins, but they're very well the seams are very well done. As the transitions, they're okay. You can feel them, but anyways. And oh, I forgot to bring another knife. Anyways, another Boker. with, again, this is not a cheap knife. I love the pattern, that's why I've kept it. I love the pattern, love the idea of this knife. It's very light in hand, and VG10. I'm not well, but it's. Can you see how this the backspacer is not in line with the spring? And we can say the same thing about the spring and the blade. It's a bit crooked. Now, for the price you're paying here, you know, it's, again, we shouldn't have these problems. We just shouldn't have this type of problems. It is a beautiful pattern. Look at the edge, how uneven it is. And look at that. That's just, how are they grinding these blades? That they just don't seem to hit the symmetry of well-grounded blades. Then these are not the first two I've gotten. And again, for the price, that's not acceptable. I love the pattern. I've kept those because of that, but that's it. And then we go to, and I have this on, I'm fixing this, cleaning it up. But man, the spring tension on this thing is just, it's a nail breaker. And not only that, but of course this is a user of the owner, but it's just, geez, really has a, you can see the half stop there, but there's something not working inside the mechanism that I don't know if it's rust. I'm gonna have to clean it again, but this one lost the half stop, as you saw, and the blade is a bit loose. So love the knives, and they have so many, but at the same time, and there you can see the gap between materials. Again, not a cheap folder. Now let's jump into Joker. This is a brand I like very much. As soon as this one arrived, loved the aesthetics of it. Just look at it, isn't it? This cappuccino flavored or colored bone, and the finish, the polish on this is just absolutely gorgeous. But then as we start looking into it, somebody was placing a pin in the wrong place, and they had to move it a bit upwards and just left a mark on the bone. So there's that. And then the seams here, you can see that this is very unfortunate. A huge gap between the bolster and the bone. And that's, again, the gap right there. It's very unfortunate. Again, the backspacer and the spring, they're not in line, and you will see that also here. I still love the design, love the knife. It has its things, you might say, but It's not centered, of course. It's very much to the left side, but it still doesn't rub against the liner, against the steel liner. But I just love the finish. The finish on this is really, really nice. The polish on the steel, it's a fingerprint magnet, and the bone, it's incredible. Some of the best finish in bone I've ever seen. No cracks, no nothing, and it's so beautifully polished. Look at that. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And this is still going to be a keeper. It's not a cheap knife. It's not expensive, but you know, I think there can be improvement in the fit of this knife. From there, we're gonna jump into GEC. Now, GEC is one of those brands that they do most of the things right. Sometimes the tension is a bit weak for me. I like a good 7.5, 8 pull. This one's perfect, and there are no gaps between the materials. The seam is just perfectly well executed. The transition from the spring to the blade, perfectly done. Very well centered. Maybe the main blade a hair to the right. Secondary blade. Again, just love what GEC brings to the table most of the time. Again, the tension, that's something 7.5 and 8. That's where I've seen most of the differences. Other than that, it's a very consistent brand in their quality, in their fit and finish. Just love me GEC. The only problem there is to be able to find this, there is just not enough out there, and that has kind of gotten me tired, and I stopped looking for GECs because that gap has been filled with Jack Wolfs. Now, talking about pricing, I think this would be pretty good pricing right out of the dealers. The Jack Wolf knives, they are, if not perfect, almost perfectly built. Just, and the consistency, the pull is perfect, no gaps between the materials. Seldomly, I have noticed a couple of hotspots in more angled corners in different other patterns. Nothing major, but still there. Something to be mentioned. The geometry on these things, the how it's ground, it's symmetrical and it's perfect. These are just laser beams. Love my Jack Wolf collection. And this is just an example of why the prices increase sometimes. And very well deserved, I think. We're talking about S90V, we're talking about, well, in this one, M390, titanium, a good micarta, titanium hardware. And the fit and finish, the execution of this is perfect. Same we can say about this, about the GEC. The design of this thing is fabulous. I love this thing. But the execution, again, there are details that, God, I wish this was better, had a better build, better fit and finish, same as this one. just has those small details that, you know, can take away so much, you know. Here it's just a matter, of course, it's a matter of focusing on the good things about the knife. And one of the good things is the aesthetics. The finish in the bone is fantastic. This polish is absolutely beautiful, and we will see this just arrived. The ground is symmetrical, and it has also positive details that we'll talk about in the review of this knife, or the first impressions, and then will come a review later on in the year or next year, as I will use this knife. But fit and finish. I hear many people complaining about prices on some of these, or pricing in the secondary market. And I understand, I get it. I used to complain as well, until I started understanding why. Because when the construction, when the quality is there, you know, it's not the same $10, $12 knife than a $300 knife. It's not the same for many reasons. And why do this go so high in the secondary market? Because there are many reasons to support that. So, and I do love Boker, but their quality control urgently needs to improve. So, just fit and finish. Let's look at it in that way. Not so much as the brands, but to understand quality at different levels. I guess that's what I've been trying to say all this time. Quality at different levels. Accepted or acceptable quality at different levels. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Professor EDC out.